Good morning to one and all, and I thank you all for attending today's webinar. So, today's topic we will be dealing with how Ayurveda looks at food and some concepts regarding consumption of food in Ayurveda. So, in the earlier classes, we have seen about the properties of different foods. Then we dealt with the 6 rasas or the tastes and what each taste does to each dosha. All that we have gone through the basics. So now we will see some concepts regarding food in Ayurveda. Coming to Matra. So Ayurveda gives a lot of importance to the quantity of food that you take. So quantity of food taken is equally important as the quality that you consume. So how much of food you consume is very, very important. So when food not taken in the right quantity, that is either if you take excess food or if you do not take the right quantity, if you take very less food. So both these two conditions are the main source of disease. So in Ayurveda, every disease that you come down to is because of your food habits. So Ayurveda has given a lot of importance on what we eat. So if you go through the disease aspect of a lot of diseases, there will be a list of causative factors. The first 2-3 lines of every disease shloka will be about wrong eating habits. So that much importance is given for every vyadi in regards to food. So food is extremely important. So how Ayurveda assesses the quantity of food to be taken is the gurutvam and lagutvam of the food. So that is the heaviness of the food that you're eating and the lightness, that is whether the food is heavy to digest or the food is light to digest. So when we went through the previous webinars, we know which food is heavy to digest, which food is light to digest. So based on the heaviness of a food to get digested or the lightness of a food to get digested, the quantity of food that we consume should be determined. Then Acharya Charaka mentions not only the gurutvam and lagutvam of food, but also it depends on our digestive power. That is an individual's digestive power. So we also saw that in Ritucharya chapter, in winters, that is early and late winters, our digestive power is by default slightly more. So that time our Agni Balam is good. So our diet can tend to vary a little. When we come to summer and rainy season, when there is a poor Agni Balam because of what happens around, then ultimately our digestive power diminishes. So it is very, very important that one assesses individuals' Agni or digestive power at that particular time and eats accordingly. So it cannot be fixed for every individual that you have to consume so much of calories, proteins. That's not how Ayurveda looks at it, or there cannot be a defined diet chart for a group of 50 or 100 people, because it depends on an individual's Agni Balam, his capacity to digest, and how much quantity of food is required for his body. So coming to the difference, basic difference. So Guru Aharam is food that is heavy to digest. Lagu Aharam is food that is light to digest. So it's predominant. Guru Aharam is predominant of Prithvi and Up Mahabhuta among the Pancha Mahabhutas, and Lagu Aharam is predominant of Vayu and Agni Mahabhuta. So by common sense, if the food is Guru or heavy, it takes longer time to digest, and if the food is Lagu, it takes lesser time to digest because it is lighter. So how much of it should be had is mentioned. So if you're consuming a Guru Aharam, it should be had half the amount of satisfaction. That is half, or some acharyas say even 1/3 of your tripti. So tripti is nothing but satisfaction, that is satiety of the body. So when you're consuming Guru Aharam, when you reach half your satisfaction or 1/3, you have to stop consuming Guru Aharam. Lagu Aharam, because it is lighter to digest, can be had slightly more than half, but you should not eat anything up to satisfaction or not throatful. So some common examples that we went through were curd, masham is nothing but urad dal, godhumam, and other examples like milk, anupamamsam, that is your seafood. All these are Guru Aharam. Whereas takram, that is proper buttermilk, jangala mamsam, meat of arid animals, vegetables, your pulses, all of this fall under Lagu Aharam. So they are lighter to digest, and your rice, millet, all of them come under Lagu Aharam. Then, what are the consequences if excess food is consumed. So these days, this is the most common that happens, is we do not stop with half our stomach. So food has become such an obsession that we end up eating so much and end up facing the consequences. So when excess food is consumed beyond half or beyond tripti, when it is consumed, then ultimately the agni or the digestive fire is incapable of digesting it well. So it leads to improper or formation of undigested food in the body. So when there is undigested food sitting in the stomach, it further vitiates the tridoshas in the body. And when the tridoshas get vitiated, it again hampers all the functionings of the body, further causes obstruction of the undigested food. So it'll end up keeping the undigested food in the stomach itself without letting it undergo digestion. So this stagnates in one place, and in Ayurveda, it is medically called alasakam. So if you don't remember the medical term, it is fine. But when you consume excess food, it stagnates in one place, predominantly in the stomach, leading to alasakam. So when food is stagnated in the stomach and not expelled out, it is called alasakam. So I think many people would have experienced this. So they're neither able to bring it throw up, nor do they have a motion. There is just undigested fullness sitting in the stomach. It is a condition called alasakam. But for some people, when they consume excess food or food that is not good, there is expulsion from both upper and lower orifices. So they either have continuous vomiting and loose bowels. That condition is called visuchikam. So these are the two possibilities that can happen when excess food is consumed. Then what happens when food is taken in less quantity? So when you also have to cater to the agni, suppose when you take less than what is needed. So for example, in winters, our agni is slightly good, then you have to give that agni enough nourishment so that it does not end up consuming your body tissues or dhatus, and it does not make you undernourished. So some people in name of diet or have very increasing vayu increasing food, or do not take any nourishing food to the body, when food is taken in very less quantity and the agni is not catered to, then it will start consuming the dhatus or tissues of your body and increases the vata, and it does not promote or give strength and growth to the body. So that is also not a very good condition. So this is about the two things that can happen when food is not properly consumed. Then what is ama? So this ama is a very interesting or important concept in Ayurveda, which I thought we can include. So amam in simple terms is nothing but undigested food. So it will not literally remain as undigested food. So what happens is, there are so we will see what are the causes of formation of ama. So amam is one of the main reasons of any kind of disease that occurs in your body, is because of the formation of amam. So what is amam in simple terms is when there is undigested food residue in the body. So over a period of time, it will not remain as undigested food. It will convert into something that cannot be digested or assimilated in the body. So for easy understanding, we can colloquially say it accumulates as a toxin in the body, and it is not strong enough that it comes out immediately. So there are two conditions. One is it either stagnates in your stomach or you get a vomiting or a loose motion. But when those conditions don't happen and there is slow accumulation of this undigested food, the undigested or improperly digested food gets converted into what we call as amam. So you can, for understanding, simple understanding, call it toxin in the body. So once it is not assimilated, it goes on accumulating in the body over a period of time. So it does not happen overnight. So over months, over years together, when amam goes on accumulating in small quantities, sometimes they show symptoms, sometimes they do not. So when this amam is left untreated in the body, it is the main cause of lot of vyadis in the body. So then the doshas vitiate because of the presence of amam. The doshas may carry this amam or this residue to different parts of the body, and depending on where it goes and lodges, various kinds of diseases can erupt. So we might see different conditions like psoriasis, different skin complaints, then suddenly people develop rheumatoid rheumatoid arthritis, gout arthritis, or suddenly develop some kind of autoimmune. So all this is not a process that happens overnight. It is simply because of this amam, stale amam that is present in the body, depending on where it goes and lodges, is the main reason for most of the vyadis we suffer today. So let us see what are the causes of amam. So ultimately, this production of amam in the body is narrowed down to our food habits. So one of the most important thing that leads to formation of amam is Virudha Dhyashanam. So it can be split as Virudha and Adhyashanam. That is consuming of Virudha aharam. So Virudham is a Sanskrit term which means two things that are not compatible to each other. So consuming of two kinds of food that are incompatible or do not go well with each other is called Virudha aharam. So when you consume this kind of food, what happens is this kind of incompatible food, it provokes the dosha in the body, but it neither expels them out of the body. So this is what it does. So it acts like a slow poison to the body. You eat it one day, you eat it 2 days, it will not show any symptoms. But over a period, there is a slow agitation and provocation of the doshas. And ultimately, when your body is incapable of coping up with this Virudha aharam, it ends up causing vyadi. So we will go through Virudha aharam in detail today. So over a period, this stagnates in the body, developing amam. So we will see the different combinations or the different varieties of incompatibility of food that acharyas have mentioned. But one of the main formations of amam is consumption of incompatible food. Some of the very common examples are consuming fish and milk together or consuming fruit and milk together. Then another cause is adhyashanam, that is eating before your previous meal is fully digested. So this is one of the most common mistakes people do these days. So Ayurveda basically recommends a 2-meal policy. But now, because of our lifestyle, because of our way of eating, etc., we can slightly expand it to 3 meals. That is ideally a breakfast, lunch, dinner. Then between lunch and dinner, if we feel hungry, we can have something light like either a fruit or a glass of milk or whatever. But this is not the standard of what we eat. So a lot of patients, when we see every 2 hours, every 1 hour, there is something or the other going inside the stomach, either because we are bored or either because someone else is eating or either because it is given to us. So we are not mindful to even think for a minute whether what is there in our stomach previously is digested or not, whether we are hungry. So nobody is mindful of that. So every 1 hour, sometimes people are having coffee, or 10 o'clock they have breakfast, 11 o'clock they have one tea, again 12 o'clock they have one buttermilk, again 1 o'clock they have lunch. So it's become more like a 8 to 10 meals a day rather than 3. So you have to wait until your previous meal is digested. Make sure you feel hungry before you send in your next food. This is very, very important according to Ayurveda. So we do not recommend frequent eating, frequent meals. Pushing in something every 2 hours will lead to adhyashanam, which is the main reason for formation of amam. Then the third point is ajirnam. So when what you consume is not properly, for some reason, digested by your body, it leads to ajirnam. It is a very common term. So that also over a period, when not treated properly, leads to formation of amam. So not only these 3, but also over a period of time, consuming food that is not liked by the person, or consuming excessive foods that are constipative, overcooked, undercooked, or raw food, because I've told you raw and uncooked food is heavy to digest to the body. So excessive exposure to uncooked or raw food by the body, or food that are heavy to digest. Some people we see clinically have almost non-vegetarian or heavy meat 3 meals a day, with sedentary lifestyle, no physical activity. So consuming of such heavy food to digest will ultimately impact your agni and cause diseases. Consuming very ruksham or dry food, consuming excessively cold food, contaminated food, dried food, food that causes burning in the stomach, food excessively soaked in water, or even if you're consuming good food, if it is consumed with a lot of grief, anger, not in a good mental space, or when you're consuming it beyond your hunger. So you have to eat when your appetite starts. Some people start to feel hungry by 1, but by the time they eat, it's 3:30. So even when you consume good food, when you're beyond your hunger, will lead to improper digestion. So these are some of the causes for formation of amam. Then what are some of the common symptoms of ajirnam? So among the three, I think people commonly face ajirnam in their day-to-day living, that is improperly digested. So when food is not digested properly, definitely we feel some discomfort. So what do we do at that time? So first, let us see what are the common symptoms we face. One is your bowel movement slightly alters. So you may start feeling constipated or not too great. Your bowel is not easily moving, or you end up having vomiting or loose motions. Then you have weakness or lassitude in the body. Then there's a buildup of gas in the stomach, distension of the abdomen, heaviness and giddiness in the body. Also, some practical things that we see is zero, lack of appetite. The person does not feel hungry at all, or their tongue will be thickly coated in white. So these are some of the typical symptoms that you're suffering from ajirnam, and that you have to rest your stomach a bit. So what do you do in case of ajirnam? So sometimes, though it may just look as a simple term, sometimes ajirnam can give a lot of pain and discomfort to the patient, and it can be really bothersome. So on top of that, it should not, when a person is in extreme pain or unable to treat or having symptoms because of ajirnam, do not give analgesics or antispasmodics. So some people have severe cramping in abdomen because of the gas or have pain. So what generally people do is they take a painkiller, they take an antacid, or they take some kind of medicine. Ayurveda recommends, even though there is intense pain, do not give analgesics or antispasmodics. Why? Because the agni that is already weak cannot further break down even the medicine that you consume, and it will further vitiate doshas, hampering the agni further. So Ayurveda has a very different approach to treating ajirnam. The best among it is suggested to wait for it to settle naturally. But because of our low pain tolerance, or because we cannot wait for so many days to allow the body settle naturally, patients are given deepana pachanam. I think this term is familiar. That is drugs or medicines that are carminative and digestive. So these will act on the agni, therefore ignite and make the agni better to work and help in digesting of the undigested food or whatever ajirnam is caused. So Ayurveda caters to correcting the agni that is there below, and once the agni is corrected, automatically what is above the agni that is not digesting and causing the problem settles down. Then, in spite of giving those medicines, if it's remaining inert, so sometimes best when you have ajirnam, if you either throw up or have a loose bowel, it is a very good thing because the body has naturally expelled it out. But in some people, there is severe stagnation and it does not come out of the body. Then medically, we make them expel it out through vomiting. Then some hot fermentation is given around the abdomen, and a medicated enema based on the patient condition, etc. All of that is decided, and enema is given to help bring the vata downward, and also expulsion of the malam, that is nothing but the fecal matter, is done. So this can be adopted by all of us in case of ajirnam or when our stomach does not feel right. So in case of mild vitiation, so when you start off by feeling that your stomach is not okay, fasting helps. So here fasting is not mentioned, should not be considered as not eating anything and keeping your stomach without food. Fasting or langhanam in Ayurveda here is equal to consuming lagu aharam. Lagu aharam is food that is easy to digest. So the most best food that we ask you to consume during ajirnam is rice kanji. So I think last class we have gone about the detail. So you dry roast the rice, powder it, because the whole thing becomes laghu, and we have seen the benefits of rice kanji in its different forms last week. So when there is a mild vitiation, or you know that your stomach is not in the right way, kindly start and move to lagu aharam. Stop eating other things. So people go on eating until they reach the saturation of it getting worse. When there is a moderate vitiation and just plain langhanam or having light food is not helping, then having deepanapachanam, that is digestive and carminative drugs. So if you consult any physician or any person, they might give you some medicines to have with that, or simply adding a little jeera, dhania, pepper to your kanji also acts as deepanam pachanam over a period. The best thing is you have to wait and listen to your body till the ajirnam settles down. And in case of severe vitiation, like I said, where there is no expulsion at all, or in spite of having medication, the ajirnam is not settling, then we do panchakarma. That is, either we have to make them vomit, or we give them a purge to physically expel out what is stuck inside. So in case of Visuchika, like I told you, where there is expulsion from both upper and lower orifices, it is a very difficult condition to cure. Then there are some certain set of medication to given, but the diet that you can follow is fasting or light food, and the diet that we give post Panchakarma, that is predominantly just kanji and the rice kanji water that we have discussed last class is predominantly given. So I think ajirnam is very, very common what we face. So which is why I thought we can include what can be done. So kindly rest your stomach at that time is what we advise. Then Shilana Dravyas. So this is another small topic where Ayurveda mentions foods that are conducive for regular or daily use. So there is a list of food that you can take every day. It will not bother you. So predominantly this is what we ideally consume in our diet. So cereals like rice, wheat, barley, pulses like moong dal are suitable for daily consumption. Then jangala mamsam, that is meat of air, light meat animals. Then gooseberry, that is nothing but nellika or amla, raisins and snake gourd. Then sugar, ghee, milk, honey are all conducive for nitya sevanam, that is regular use. Pomegranate, rock salt or Himalayan rock salt, and immature radishes, your tender radish is good. Foods that are not conducive for regular use, the first thing comes about is dadi. So it is not something Ayurveda recommends to consume every day and 365 days. Then saktu or vinegar, that is extremely sour, pungent foods. Then uncooked food, not good for everyday consumption. Meat of dried and emaciated animal. Then black gram or urad dal consumed in excess. So what we commonly see in some patients is from Monday to Saturday, all the days, morning and night, they take idli dosa. That batter gets fermented and sour, and by the end of the week, you're only consuming idli dosa. So it is not that it's a bad food, but anything in excess is not good. So urad dal, like I mentioned, is guru to the body and heavy to digest. So all these foods are not recommended for daily or excessive use. Then tuberous roots, so all your potatoes, your raw banana, all these gassy kind of vegetables. Then sprouted grains, not good for regular. Dried leaves, sugarcane molasses. Then kilata is a term where is given a meaning as it is heating of milk and splitting it. So basically when you put something sour on top of milk and make the milk split to make preparations is called kilatam. So some common things that we eat that way are paneer, cheese, etc. So because milk should not come in contact with anything sour, this is not considered a very great food for regular use. So these are all ashilana dravyas, that is you can consume it once in a while, not conducive for regular use. Then another concept in Ayurveda is what is the order or what is the order of taste that you consume food in. So firstly, food that is guru, heavy, nourishing, and madhuram, sweet, have to be taken first. So your sweet or whatever fruits that you take ideally comes first. Then amla lavana rasam, that is your sour and salty foods are taken in the middle of the meal. So ideally our traditional food starts off with that, where all the sweet is served first, then you go into having your rasam or sambar or your saru or whatever that is slightly sour and salty. Then at the end Katutikta Kashaya Rasam should be taken. So ideally, if you see, properly made buttermilk will be slightly amla kashaya rasam, and whatever your buttermilk rice with a little bit of your pickle or whatever ginger, this thing. So all that is slightly katu tiktam, which aids in the digestion of whatever we have eaten before. So this is the order of food that should be taken. But today's concept is completely different, where we start with starter, we go to main course, and then we have the dessert at the end. So which is not a very ideal way of consuming a meal. So this is the order of tastes we should take. Why? Because let us see the process of digestion according to Ayurveda that is explained. So like I told you in the first class, if you remember, the initial stage of digestion, there is a mild increase of kapham. Mid stage, there is a mild increase of pittam. And the end stage of digestion, there is a mild increase of vatam. So keeping this broad outline in mind, you can understand. So what happens in Ayurveda is, that is what is explained is, when food of all your 6 rasas are consumed, initial manifestation is there is a slight madura bhava or a sweetness that is manifested in the initial stage of digestion. So also by default, the first stage of digestion results in stimulation of kapham slightly in the body. So naturally, when you tend to consume sweet, heavy, madura kind of aharam, which are more heavy to digest, the breaking down or the digestion of them begins in the first stage of digestion itself, and the slight increase in kapham in the beginning stage aids in the digestion of this madura guru aharam that is had in the beginning of the meal. Then during the process of digestion, when it moves to the second phase and your food is in a semi-digested state. So generally itself, semi-digested food is slightly sour or amla by nature. So what happens is, this food moves further downwards from the stomach, and when it goes to the agni, it stimulates the production of pittam. So anything that is sour, we have seen, slightly stimulates the pittam, and pittam by default, when it is in good condition, ideally the rasa of pittam is sour, appropriately gets stimulated by the sour food that we have secondary. So initially the sweet food gets digested. In the middle of digestion, your semi-digested food in itself is naturally or by default slightly sour, and the pittam that gets stimulated by this also gets appropriately stimulated by the sour food that you have secondary, and the pittam works well to digest your food further. Then once it is digested well and processed and assimilated by the agni, the further remaining food, what happens is, it reaches the pakvashayam, or you can colloquially call it the colon. So the remaining which is not digested or assimilated moves to the colon. It further gets digested and dehydrated by agni. So you can physically assume that your agni is here, and when the food which is digested and assimilated is gone all over, the remaining food goes below your agni. It moves further down from your stomach to the colon. So anything that you keep below agni, so suppose you keep something under the fire, what happens is, because of the heat that it is exposing to from below, it gets dehydrated and becomes very dry. So when the food moves to the colon, the agni is acting from above. So it further dehydrates and attains the shape of pindam. So this is nothing but the fecal formation. So whatever is assimilated happens, the remaining food or food that is not digested goes down to your colon, gets dehydrated, and there is a formation of fecal matter. So because of this dehydration and drying that happens, there is, because of the Ruksha Guna, this stage also stimulates Vayu in the body, resulting in a predominance of Katu. So by default, the natural rasa of Vata, or for proper functioning, there is a mild, once Vayu increases, the Katu rasa predominance in that place increases. So when you consume your last food to be predominantly Katu Tikta Kashayam, and there is an stimulation of vata, this vata balances this katu tikta kashaya rasam and helps in proper digestion. So because by default there is a increase of kapham, pittam, vayu in the processes of digestion according to Ayurveda, the order of consuming food when had accordingly in each stage, that particular taste of food can be digested appropriately. So that is why madhuram or sweet and heavy to digest food should be consumed first. Then your sour and salty should be consumed second. Then also your beetle leaf or whatever slightly acrid spicy food is had at the end. That is your kashaya rasa. That is why your typical buttermilk, all that comes at the end of your food consumption. So this is one concept of order of eating food. Then Virudha aharam is the most important concept, which we saw was the first reason for formation of amam in the body. So let us go through in detail what is Virudha aharam. So Virudha aharam is nothing but incompatible food. So food that is not compatible, or two kinds of food that should not be had together. So such food is considered fatal or even toxic to the body. So how is it defined? So it is nothing but food that provokes doshas, but at the same time does not expel them out of the body, which is even more dangerous. So at least if it is expelled out, it is okay. But the nature of Virudha aharam is such that it will show its effect or nature only after years and years of consumption. So the person who takes such food, when identified, should be subjected to shodhanam, that is cleansing or shamanam therapies. So some of the most common examples are anupamamsam or heavy meat. When consumed with milk, honey, black gram, jaggery is considered viruddham. Then fish, prawns or seafood with milk. Sour food or fruits with milk. So this concept of fruit and milk, having a milkshake, having smoothies, all of this is viruddham. Then sour food with milk is also something we very commonly do, but we don't realize that we do. Lot of people will have breakfast and tea, coffee with breakfast. So our food that we eat is predominantly has sour, spicy and salt in it. So no food is without these three tastes. So immediately after that, consuming your tea, coffee with that is also viruddham. Or some people consume your tea, coffee half an hour after breakfast, 45 minutes after breakfast, or some people have dinner at 8 o'clock and consume milk at 8:30. So you have to wait before it completely digests. Even if you push your milk into food that is half digested, it is still viruddham. So milk has to be treated as a separate entity, should not be coming in contact with anything of your food. So evening also is a very common thing. People have tea, coffee with some snack, tea, coffee with charts, tea, coffee with some savories. Absolutely viruddham. So it's a practical thing that you may not be able to correlate, but you can say we don't drink fish and fruits and milk, but consuming milk with anything you eat will also categorize as viruddham. Then horse gram, millets, vegetables with milk, or consuming milk soon after these. Then chicken and curd consumed together. So I think a lot of people marinate it in curd and heat it and do all sorts of things to chicken. Then banana with either buttermilk, curd. So fruits in general with curd, milk or buttermilk is completely contraindicated. Ghee kept in bronze vessel. Then intake of payasam and krisharam. So payasam is a traditional preparation which predominantly has milk in it. Krishara can be considered as a savory food which predominantly is made of rice, black gram. So then again, mixing milk with anything that is sweet, sour, salty or spicy. Then honey, ghee, bone marrow, oil or water. Combination of any of these two alone in equal quantity is viruddham. Then mushrooms cooked in mustard oil and honey with hot beverages, or bringing honey in contact with anything hot or warm, or even alcohol. These are some of the common examples. Then whom does Virudha aharam not affect? So people may say we have been having all this for years together, we don't have any diseases. So what happens is it may not harm people who are on regular physical activity. So if you see people who are into excessive sports players, people who are into 3 or 4 hours of physical activity, or who are into high intense labor. So if they consume Virudha aharam like this, it may not affect them immediately, but over a period later, once the metabolism, etc. reduces, it may. But even though they might be actively consuming Virudha aharam in excess, if they have regular good physical activity, whose Agni is extremely excellent in young people, in very, very strong people with good balam, it does not affect them, or it may not be affected or immediate vyadhi is not seen. Or if you take it in very less quantity, it will not bother you. Once in a while, if we are going to consume it this way, once in a while if we cheat, it's okay, it will not affect us. Or a person whose body has become accustomed to it, sathmya. So even though it does not affect them, this habit has to be gradually tapered out from their system. So what the body does is, the body can then tackle in all these cases by self-defense or your inbuilt immunity for preservation of life. So your body will fight through it as much as it can and prevent it from causing, but beyond a point when it's unable to, is when you end up getting diseases. This Virudha aharam, even though is wrong, should not be withdrawn suddenly. It should be tapered down from the diet slowly. So sudden withdrawal of apathyam, that is, even though it is a wrong habit, suddenly withdrawing it and installing good pathyam can cause, that is also harmful for the body. So nothing should be stopped suddenly. You gradually reduce it from your diet and then slowly stop it. So there are almost 16 types of Virudha concepts that Acharya Charaka has mentioned. So you need not remember everything in great detail. We can just go through the basic principle, and we can adapt we can avoid, we may not be doing most of these mistakes, but let us go through the 16 types in brief. So first thing is Desha Virudha, that is eating not what is adaptive to the place that we live in. So suppose we are staying in a Jangala Desha, like I told you, a very arid, dry climate. By default, the land is dry, less water. The plant, animals, and the vegetation there are predominant of vata. So on top of that, if you are staying in a Jangala Desha and consuming only hot, drying, sharp food, it further aggravates vata, which is an example of Desha Viruddham. So you have to consume something that is opposite to the qualities to pacify the vata. Similarly, in Anupadesham, that is in your coastal belts, in your sea belt areas, when there's already a natural aggravation of kapham in the vegetation, the seafood or the food that you're eating, consuming more of cold, unctuous food or kaphavardhaka food will cause you definitely kapha problems, which is an example of Desha Viruddham. Then in Kala Viruddham, Kalam is nothing but time. So the first example is according to season. So like we have mentioned, in winters, when the Agni is good, you take more of nourishing, unctuous, heavy to digest food and support your Agni. So if you do the opposite, taking dry, cold foods in winter and taking hot, pungent food in summer, is Ritu Viruddham. Then in age, like I've told you, in young age, by default, there is a increase or predominance of kapham. So further things that vitiate kapham should not be taken. Similarly, old age, always post 55-60, your vayu has a tendency to aggravate. So further on, not taking ghee, not taking milk, or taking extremely dry food is Kala Viruddha. Then, according to time, Ayurveda recommends 2 meals a day. So consuming frequent meals or consuming without previous meal being digested is an example of a Viruddham, and taking curd at night is contraindicated and Viruddham. Then Vyadhi Viruddham is more pertaining to a physician. When you come in with a certain complaint, you would be given an avoid list to avoid for that particular Vyadhi. Not following that is Vyadhi Viruddham. Then Agni Viruddham. So when a person is having Mandagni, consuming heavy. So Mandagni is when your digestion is dull. So by default, in summer or rainy season, or just like that for a few days, if you're not feeling too hungry, in spite of that, consuming heavy food is Agni Viruddham. Similarly, consuming very light food when you have a good appetite is also not good. Both of this acts as Agni Viruddham. Then Matra Viruddham is quantity. That is, honey and ghee consumed in equal quantity alone is considered as Matra Viruddham, and they can cause diseases. Then Sathmya Viruddham. Sathmyam is when you're accustomed to something. So making a person have food he is not accustomed to is also Viruddham to his body. So if a person is used to consuming very, very sweet, nourishing or cold food, or the opposite, suddenly changing their habits all of a sudden. So is not good for them. Even though what he's eating is wrong, there should be a gradual reduction and tapering of it, and introduction of the good food or the right eating habits gradually. Then samskara viruddham. Samskaram is processing anything. So there are certain processings that can make food viruddham. I think we have seen all this: heating of curd, bringing of honey in contact with anything hot or even warm, using oil for cooking that has already been. So reusing the oil multiple times is viruddham. Then textually mentioned pigeon meat cooked in mustard oil acts as viruddham. So all these processes that are done to food which can make it viruddham. Then virya viruddham. So viryam we saw as the potency of food. So either they can be sheetam, cooling to the body, or ushnam to the body. So having two different foods that are different in viryam together is viruddham. So one of the common example is fish and milk, or seafood, prawns and milk. I think one of some cuisines have a lot of that. So either they use milk in its cooking, or like I told you, you need not have it together, but within half an hour, 1 hour before your meal is digested, if you send in the milk, it is still viruddham. So though both fish and milk or seafood are madhura rasa and vipakam, milk is sheetam or cooling, and fish is ushnam. So when you consume foods that are opposite in viryam, it vitiates blood, obstructs channels, and they are viruddham to the body. Then koshta viruddham. Koshtam is nothing but it is more relevant to doctors while giving patients virechanam, or the panchakarma of making them purge. So assessing the patient's koshtam is very, very important. So in a krura koshtam, that is in a very hard person with a hard bowel or difficult bowel, strong bowel, giving them a mild dose of purgative will further aggravate the doshas in the body, will not allow them to purge. Similarly, if he's a very sensitive and a mridu koshti, that is an easily purgeable person, giving them strong purgative also acts as viruddham. So this is more pertaining to doctors. Coming to avastha viruddham. So these are all just examples, but you can just understand these concepts. So again, already in a person, if vata is aggravated, you go on doing the activities and consuming food that increase vata, it is viruddham to that avastha or state that you are in. Similarly, in kapha condition, already the person has increased kapha due to excessive sleep or laziness, or there is a increase of kapha. Then if they consume more kapha vardakam or kapha increasing food, it is avastha viruddham. Then krama viruddham, that is your kramam or order. So this is very important that we need to follow. Consuming food before your previous meal is digested is viruddham. Consuming food before evacuation of malam and mutram. So make sure that you empty or evacuate yourself before consuming. Then consuming food when the person is not hungry also is viruddham. And consuming food when your hunger is aggravated. So beyond your hunger, if you're going to consume, is also viruddham. Then parihara viruddham, that is not practicing how food. So there is a certain way in which food should be taken. So next class we'll be dealing with different vidhis or ways to consume food. So when you do not include them in your diet, and taking cold things after taking ghee, or taking hot water after consuming pork, having fruit after taking curd or buttermilk, all this is wrong order of taking food. So some people take very hot spicy food with like a cold drink or a soda or something like that. So consuming extremely cold food after intake of hot pungent food is also parihara viruddham. Then paka viruddham, that is any defect in the process of cooking. So that is overcooked food, undercooked food, cooking of food in unclean water, or excessive burnt food. All these are also over a period. So these are all, if you consume it for 1 day, 2 days, occasionally, it will not bother, but regularly including this in your diet. Then samyoga viruddham. Samyogam is combination, which I think we have discussed. So sour food with milk, salty food with milk, fruits and milk together. So all this is samyogam, wrong combinations of food. Hrit viruddham is anything that is not pleasant to taste, not liked by us, and forcefully consumed is also viruddham. Sampat viruddham is taking food that is immature, over mature, putrefied, not good or healthy. Then vidhi viruddham, that is food that is not taken according to the rules mentioned. So this we will be discussing. There are certain rules called ashtahara vidhi, where there are certain, you have to take food in such and such a manner is described, which will be our topic for next session. So when food is not taken according to that also can lead to problems. Then dosha viruddham, again aggravating or having foods that aggravate your already increased dosha in a body. So this is again more pertaining to a physician. So if a person comes in with a vata vyadhi or a vayu related complaint, we will give them a certain avoid list that aggravates vayu. So already having a vata problem, if you go on consuming foods that increase vata. So what are the foods that increase vata? We know from the previous discussions, consuming excess spicy or katu food, raw uncooked food, excessive cold food, food that lacks oil, ghee, or unctuousness, consuming a lot of vegetable and millet, reducing the quantity of rice, ghee, milk. All this will further aggravate vata, increasing the vyadhi that the person has. So similarly, if you have a pitta vyadhi, you're already suffering from burning, gastric, you're having heat sensation, consuming all aharas that are ushnam, so including more spicy food, including curd in your diet, eating hot, pungent, sour food, further vitiates the pitta vyadhi in the body. If you're having a kapha pradhana vyadhi, say diabetes or some lassitude in the body, some kind of skin problem that is predominant of kapham, if it is what identified, then again consuming of foods that increase kapham, lot of sweets, lot of milk, jaggery, sweets, or things like that, and not doing proper exercise, having a sedentary lifestyle, further vitiates kapham in the body. So utilization of food having similar qualities to aggravated doshas is dosha viruddham. So the first part of the prescription that an Ayurvedic physician will always give you is the patyam is meant for the vyadhi and not for the medicine. Some people think Ayurveda gives patyam or do's and don't list because of the medicines they are given or because they have some side effects. It is not for that. So 50% of the prescription begins with stopping of food, stopping of consumption of foods that trigger that particular dosha. So once that nidana parivarjanam is done, once the causative factors for the disease is removed, then your medicines, your treatment, your therapies will act better. So following of patyam is very, very important in Ayurveda, not for the medicines that we give, but for the dosha or vyadhi that you have got. So this is about today's session. So let us just recap. So Ayurveda mentions about importance of food in terms of quantity or matra. So we have to have food to half our satisfaction. And I think last class also I've mentioned that half our stomach should be filled with food, 1/3 should be water, 1/3 should be left empty. So that I will mention it in the next class, but I think previously also it has been mentioned. And assess the gurutvam and lagutvam of the food that you're having. Your plate will have a mixture of it, and consume to half your stomach or half your satisfaction. If your food is predominantly laghu, you can consume slightly more. Then what are the causes of amam? So predominantly the amam is the reason for all diseases in the body, and the formation of amam in the body results in wrong eating habits. So we saw the different wrong eating habits, that is consumption of Virudha aharam, that is incompatible food, and we went through in detail about what is Viruddham, some practical examples, then whom does Virudha aharam not affect, but how still if you are used to consuming Viruddham and end up getting a disease, then doing Panchakarma or Shodhana is very, very important. And adhyashanam, that is consuming before your previous meal is digested, is also wrong. And commonly what we face in our day-to-day life is ajirnam, that is when our food for some reason does not get digested well. What simple things we can do at home, and how Ayurveda treats ajirnam by correcting the agni. Then what are the foods that are conducive for regular use and not for regular use, and the order in which, the taste wise, in which food should be consumed. So this is what we saw today. So in the next class, we will further deal with different further more rules that are mentioned about eating food. So I thank one and all. And yeah, these are the two mail IDs. You can make a note. And I think if there are any doubts, we can start with the chat box and then go on. So rice when cooked with milk is predominantly payasam. So definitely it makes it guru or heavy to digest. So it acts more like a dessert. So that definitely makes the food guru. And if you're having something like that, kindly have it alone. So occasionally, in very few occasions, when you have a sweet made with milk and you have it for a festival with your food, or occasionally you're mixing it, there is no harm. But some people, what they do is they eat rasam rice, they eat sambar rice, then they finish it with one rice and milk and mix it together. So please don't have rice and milk with other things together, or they'll have rice and milk with sugar or salt in it, and they will have some vegetable or some accompaniment with it. So all that is viruddham to the body. So then, so some food are stated as allergic. What is so allergy is not a concept that is discussed in Ayurveda. It depends on each individual's immunity and strength as to why the food is reacting to their body and what has to be done. So it is a very personalized approach. So why does consuming a lot of vegetables? I think we have discussed this in the last class, that in general they are light to digest. Some vegetables are heavy, green leafy vegetables are heavy and dry. So consuming a lot of it increases vayu. So how to determine 1/3 or half? So then again, there's nothing fixed in Ayurveda. So if 100 people are attending or coming to the same clinic, we cannot be giving the same diet chart to 100 people. So then again we have to use our intellect or buddhi. So when we are eating, we know how full we feel. So for you, 4 chapatis may make you half full. For me, 2 chapatis may make me half full. So you'll have to, that is why Ayurveda gives so much importance to giving so much of concentration while eating food, so that you are able to assess how full you are. So definitely the fullness of you can be felt and assessed by you. So in my country, it is said not to have milk on empty stomach. So I don't know which country, but I think so milk is definitely heavy to digest. In Ayurveda also, milk is considered guru, which is why we ask you to have it alone. So you give sufficient time for that milk to digest before you have it with anything else. So ideally, I think a lot of people previously also asked how can we eat, what can we eat? So clinically, practically, when patients come, we ask them to, in the morning, because 8-10 hours of sleep, their stomach is empty, we ask them to have a glass of milk if they're not contraindicated. Then wait for 1.5 hours, make sure the milk is digested, then have breakfast. Then after breakfast, nothing, because ultimately whatever idli, dosa, poha, whatever breakfast you have is slightly guru and well nourished. Then immediately have lunch when you're hungry. Then between lunch and dinner, you can either have a milk, or these days people are so used to tea, coffee, that it's impossible to ask them to avoid it. So we say have maybe half cup of mild tea, or if you're not used to it, you can have a fruit or something like that and have an early dinner. Then after dinner, nothing is recommended. So if you consume milk on empty stomach, nothing will happen as such. So can we drink hot water post a meal? I think we have discussed when in the Jalam chapter that consuming warm water in between your meal is the best. So please explain quantity of food again. So again, it depends on the gurutvam and lagutvam of the food. That is, depends on the heaviness and the lightness of the food and the agni that you have. So how well your agni is, or whether you have a dull digestion or a good digestion. You consume food in accordance to agni balam, which changes according to season, etc. So in general, wait till you're hungry, eat up to half stomach, not full stomach. Avoid continuous eating or pushing in something into your stomach. So that is the only thing. Then how to get rid of amam, I think I have explained in detail. So if there's a mild vitiation, go through langanam or fasting. If you're still unable to get through the ajirnam symptoms, then you can definitely consult a physician for some medicines. And if there is definitely, I have not mentioned the signs and symptoms of amam because it becomes more of a physician's point of view. Definitely, if you're having some kind of disease that is due to wrong eating habits, then you can definitely go in for some panchakarma or cleansing. So do you recommend online consultation? And so I will answer relevant stuff. So will jaggery increase kapham? I have mentioned this last class, that jaggery is kapha vardakam and increases kapham. So please stick to today's topic, otherwise I cannot. So less food leads to vata. So then again, what are the symptoms? So that's when I told you. So I've discussed about aggravation of vata. So less food here is individualistic. Sometimes in certain seasons, less food is okay. In extreme winters or when you're hungry, you still don't satisfy yourself and have very less or lagu aharam. Vayu increases by causing bloating, burping, constipation, buildup of gas. All these are very common symptoms of aggravation of vayu in the body. And over a period, if you're going to go on consuming like this, your body is never nourished. So such people are very lean, emaciated, they do not put on weight, they are very weak by nature. All these are symptoms. So having milk and dry fruits will be recommended. So then again, most of the dry fruits are sweet, so it is okay. There is no as such contraindication with the dry fruit and milk, but we always stick to having milk separately, and we say please consume your dry fruits or fruits, whatever you have, a little quantity with breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Or in between, if you feel extremely hungry, you have a little bit of this dry fruit or fruit in between. So why is milk and fruit viruddham? So basically, fruits are generally, most of them, the vipakam or the end product of digestion is considered sour. Milk is sweet or maduram. So the basic principle is, if you're going to squeeze something sour in milk, the milk splits. That is how you make paneer, cheese, all of that. So over a period of time, continuously, if milk is going to be exposed to something sour, salty, or even in milk by mistake, if something sour or salty falls, milk splits. So if the same thing is going to happen in your stomach, it is something that is spoiled. So continuously taking that, it is definitely going to cause vyadi. It is considered as a spoiled food when milk splits. Occasional consumption of paneer, cheese is okay, but regularly making the milk split in your stomach, accumulating and assimilating it in your body, it becomes difficult, which is why it is considered as viruddham. So when should fruits be consumed? Because that also. So only fruits do not take 2 hours. Or if you want to consume only food, some people replace their breakfast with a bowl of fruit. That is also okay. Or maximum, when we have it with our meal, we might consume a few pieces of fruit. If you want to have exclusively a meal as your fruit, you can, and you can have it as your breakfast. Then wait till it digests and give it sufficient time. So how do you know a food is digest? Your burp becomes clear, your stomach starts feeling empty. So there is again that urge of hunger that comes in. So assess all these symptoms, signs and symptoms, and you start feeling light on your body once the food digests. So you can assess that way and take it. Can milk and artukulu? What is artukulu? I don't know. So milk should not be consumed with anything. That is the basic principle we follow. What is the effect of palum param given certain occasions? So that I don't know why they do it, and it is contraindicated in Ayurveda. But then I told you, though it is viruddham, when it is consumed very rarely, in some rare occasions, in very small quantities. I think maximum it might be given in temples or as a prasadam. So we might have 1 spoon of it. I think if you have, there are certain exceptions to viruddham. So if it is had occasionally, very rarely in small quantities, it will not bother you. So our consumption, of course, of food, meal, consuming curd at the end, followed by fruits, milk, and rice with jaggery first. Are these incorrect? So first of all, consuming curd at the end, followed by fruit. So that's what. Do not end your meal with that. And I have told you, curd is not a nitya sevaniya dravya. That is, curd is something that you cannot consume every day. Proper buttermilk can be consumed. So at lunch, when you're having predominantly buttermilk, which we have indicated only for lunchtime, no curd or buttermilk for dinner, and mostly for breakfast we do not. So you can include your fruits for breakfast and dinner preferably, or between your lunch and dinner in the evening when you feel hungry, you include that. If you're having a meal with curd or buttermilk, do not include fruit in it. So food excessively soaked in water. So then again, idli dosa. So food excessively soaked in water can be your over soaked molasses sprouts, or soaked grains like that. But then again, you're processing your idli dosa with the batter, you're changing its form. So then again, the urad dal is heavy to digest, and because idli dosa is fermented, the end of it is slightly sour. It is not recommended to be a very regular consumed food. So always mix your food. So you can consume idli dosa twice a week, thrice a week, but what I meant to say is people have it 365 days, morning and night, only idli dosa. So it is heavy to digest, it increases kapham, and because of your fermenting nature of batter, the sourness goes on increasing, which is why Ayurveda doesn't recommend it as a very regular food. This thing, eating rice with hot milk after rice with curry is fine. No, it is not. I explained why. Then what is the perspective on drinking lemon water followed by, so why do you need lemon water followed by tea after an hour is my question. So we do not rest our stomach at all. Why do we have to constantly keep pushing in something, is what we say. In between, if you're very thirsty, you feel like drinking something, sip on some hot water or sip on some jeera water or something that aids your carminative digestion. You do not have something continuously every 1 hour. Your body does not require that. And especially in today's world where we are sitting for 8 to 10 hours just sitting in one place and working, definitely our body does not need food every 1 hour or a drink every 1 hour. So you can avoid that. Instead, sip on hot water. How about hot milk before going to sleep? So you have to give food and milk 3 hours digestion gap. So you either have your dinner by 6:37, after 3 hours have milk. You cannot have milk and food within half an hour, 1 hour gap, because you have to wait till your dinner or food digests, which is why we ask you to take your milk in the evening, or if you want to have the milk at night, make sure you finish your dinner by 6:37, and at 10 o'clock just before going to bed you can have a glass of milk. So then again, is taking chawanprash, that is not relevant to today. It is a rasayanam. It depends on each person, their agni, why they need to take it, and etc. So I consume turmeric milk before sleep. So assess what I have mentioned today and then consume it. So what food to eat to reduce acidity? I think we have discussed about foods that are sour and spicy, which increase acidity last class in Rasabedium, and how to balance it. So and then does Ayurvedic medicine have expiry date? It's not relevant to this, so I am skipping that question. Milk and food, fruit is virudham, so this makes fruit salad a virudham food. But is this also true for fruits, or is milk and banana allowed? So no. So fruit salad, I don't think we add milk in it. A bowl of couple of different fruits together is not virudham. You can have different fruits together, but don't add milk or custard or something in it. No fruit and milk, no fruit and buttermilk, no fruit and curd. So nothing. So there is no. Then coconut milk is okay, can be added with vegetables. Coconut milk is okay. Its properties are not as good. It's not the same as cow's milk or animal milk. Coconut milk is okay. Then how to balance food? So that's when I've told you your food can be of. So if you have a balanced meal of rice, dal, some vegetables, some ghee in your diet, okay, then eat to your hunger. That is how you balance your food. So there is no specific diet chart. So you stick to having breakfast, lunch, dinner, and something between lunch and dinner if you're hungry, and avoid all these mix up of foods that we have told. That itself, and I think are mostly what we consume in our balanced Indian diet, is almost balancing all doshas, except don't have excess of anything. So even amritam when consumed in excess is visham. So any one food article also don't go on consuming it every day. So Kala Virudham, why at young age kapha should be reduced and old age? So I have mentioned this by default in the first chapter, that in childhood, there is a natural tendency for kapham to be slightly high. So on top of that, if children consume excess sweets, excess of jaggery, excess of sweet kind of food, they're easily prone to kapha vyadhi. So you see children frequently catching cold cough, they get a worm infestation. All this is because of that. Similarly, in old age, there is a natural tendency for the vayu to aggravate, which is why we should constantly balance that and prevent it from further aggravating, which is why you should keep a check. Then again, in rasabedium, we have discussed that rice, wheat, moong dal, all these, though they are sweet, they do not increase kapham. Specifically, kapha vardakam, like sweet food, excessive jaggery, excessive of maduram kind of foods or sweets, pastries increase kapham. So you have to remember that. Can we have grain with milk like Horlicks? So I think that is okay. So these days that malt kind of thing is okay, but yeah, to some once in a while you can have it. Then Vishuddha aharam. So again, banana milk is traditionally given occasionally in some rare function or something like that. So I don't know its scientific reason or why they give it in the function, but it is advised not to have regularly. So here the grapes that I've mentioned in Shilana Dravya are raisins, not the grapes. So I think I've written it in the bracket as raisins, whereas your grapes come under your citrus category. But however, so grapes, sometimes your green grapes can also be sweet. So you can check the variety. There is sour grapes and sweet grapes. But today what I mentioned in Shilana Dravya or conducive for regular use is raisins. So is cheese recommended in Ayurveda? Not regularly. Then again, I told you it is splitting of milk, which is Viruddham. Satamav kanji on empty stomach is okay. Then again, you have it with milk or something. Wait till it digests and then have something else. So what people do is they'll have one coffee, again 1 hour after that one coffee, again half an hour one kanji, again half an hour later another coffee. So don't have that. You can have Satamav kanji for breakfast or have it in the beginning. Wait, you can add maybe milk, or only if you're habituated to water, have it. Wait till it digests and have. So then again, that kanji should not have any salt or anything in it. Please make sure. So can fasting be done when not well? You cannot do fasting when you're unwell. And there is nothing like fasting duration that is mentioned in Ayurveda. This intermittent fasting and different forms of fasting have come up today. So we say eat to hunger. Some people do well even with 2 meals. They do not feel hungry. There is no botheration for them. So definitely you can follow that. There is no specific duration. Here the fasting that I repeatedly mentioned in ajirnam is consumption of lagu aharam. So it is not that you go empty on your nil by mouth. Kindly consume lagu aharam. The best that I told you in ajirnam is kanji. Can I have only fruits and dry fruits, nuts for dinner? If your appetite is only so much, you feel full and get a good sleep with that, you can. So do you have, what is it? So do millets have to be so millets, I think, need not be soaked for longer and all. So maybe few hours, and I think even if you cook them in sufficient water, they get cooked. So is there any season we shouldn't fast? So preferably nothing textually mentioned, but then again, in summers or when your strength by nature is very, very weak in general, then you avoid fasting. In general, if you have any disease or if you're unwell, fasting is not recommended. You can fast if you're absolutely healthy. So atukulu is poha. So then again, I told you milk poha you can have. Then again, you're going to add sugar or something. Have only that. Don't mix it with other kinds of sour, salty, and spicy food. That is the only thing. The same logic you can use for everything. Panchamritam is. So I think Panchamritam. Then again, it's regular in ancient practice and consumed in very small quantity. So again, it'll have curd, milk, honey, fruits, and all. Occasionally, one small quantity is okay. Not, and I think we don't eat cups and cups of Panchamritam anyways. So, at least to my knowledge, is whey water good nowadays? Whey protein. So that is what I told you. Pulse protein and meat protein are plant protein is very, very different. we do not believe in the concept that this whey protein that is got from milk and plant protein increases muscle bulk. It increases vayu. So, and it is, yeah, so we do not recommend it personally for muscle building. In Ayurveda, mamsam mamsena vardate. So only mamsam increases mamsam in the body. This whey protein and all just increases vayu in the body, is what we have assessed. Is there a measure for the quantity in terms of cup? So I told you, then again, please use your yukti or your buddhi to assess food quantity. There is no quantification like calories, grams mentioned in Ayurveda to eat. So, is dinner not advised after sunset? Ideally, but practically in today's world, it is impossible. So we at least say finish dinner by 8:30, because ideally you go to bed by 10:30, give it sufficient time to digest. So it is actually impossible to follow, but you can if some people still do. So what should be the frequency of eating cooked sprouts during a week? So I think usli, you generally cook the dal. So if you're going to eat it uncooked, for vegetarians, source of protein. So again, Ayurveda does not deal with compensation of vitamins and minerals. We do not look at sprouts as that. So again, I told you, sprouts are guru, vatavardakam, heavy to digest. So you always cook and have your food. I don't know what is the difference between cooking it and having it raw. Having it raw only increases vayu and makes it more difficult for your body to digest. So whatever you want to include in your diet, kindly cook and have it. So why is fruit and curd viruddham? So both, some fruits are sweet. See, curd in general is actually ushnam and abhishanti. It blocks all the channels. And fruit and curd is not to be had because some by taste, madhuram, some fruits are sweet, some fruits are sour. But there is no exact reasoning like fish and milk or fruit and milk why. But in general, there are certain do's and don'ts for curd. It does not only depend on the virium or the taste, it depends on the virium of the fruit also. It depends on the vipakam, end product of digestion, all of that as well. So similarly, chicken and curd, all of that. So is oats lagu or guru? I don't know. I think it's considered like a form of millet, or from what I assume it is obtained from, I think it is lagu. So can curd diluted with water? So I think I've mentioned a proper procedure to make buttermilk. Diluting curd does not make it buttermilk, and how to consume curd and buttermilk has been discussed. Can we have ragi malt for breakfast? Yes, you can. Again, follow the do's and don'ts. Again, you cannot be having ragi malt with milk and then having idli dosa with that. So if you're having something with milk, have only that. So how to self-introspect and control pitta kapha? So only if there is an aggravation or some physical discomfort in your body, you need to realize that there's an aggravation. If you're generally well, you need not think about which dosha is aggravated, because if it's aggravated, you'll definitely have some kind of symptoms. Is it true that 36-hour fast? Though I have no idea about this fasting, different concepts of fasting, I do not have an idea. Then for senior citizens, recommended to have light food every 2 hours, but not regular break. So this is again depends on your agni. So in old age in itself, your appetite reduces. One, the person does not tend to feel much hungry. So every 2 hours is not needed, but the quantity of food that they consume would be predominantly less. But we still stick to 2 meals or maximum 3 meals a day. So it does not change that way. The food that you consume in each meal can vary slightly. So for someone with lean body, is non-veg diet necessary? So by general, if you're lean and healthy, it is okay. So if you're predominantly vata prakriti, you may always be on the leaner side. It is not necessary you have to consume non-veg. So does Ayurveda talk about upavasa vrat? No, it does not talk about these kind of fastings. So I will not go into that. Oh, 1 second, it's gone back to the end. So I think we'll quickly go through because we're running out of time. Where was I? Yeah. Is fasting advised? Is fasting advised? Every fortnight. Why is it advised to do fasting on Ekadasi? So there is no significant reason here that usually they say that one, because we go on consuming so much food. I think in earlier days the practice was one day we don't eat and give the stomach a little rest, then the jirnam improves, was what their belief was. But I see a lot of people, they eat more on fasting days. They go on drinking something every 1 hour. They go on eating fruits. Actually, on the days people fast, I have seen they eat more. So once in a while, if you're not too hungry, definitely you can fast. There is no wrong this thing, but do not suppress your hunger and fast such that you get an increase of vayu in the body. Kanji with buttermilk is okay. Properly made buttermilk is okay. Not diluting curd and having kanji with it. Properly made buttermilk with kanji and a little salt is okay occasionally. Or in the morning, you can have it with milk. So then again, I think a lot of questions have repeated in the question answer session. Is it fine to have buttermilk in the night with food rice? So again, properly made buttermilk, go through the chapter, but we do not recommend buttermilk at night also, because one property buttermilk has is it induces phlegm. That is the only not so good property about buttermilk. So if you're going to have buttermilk and sleep at night, there might be a tendency for the nose block and the respiratory kind of problems to set in. So it's said to have heavy food in the morning. Is it right? So what generally we have idli, dosa, poha, all that is heavy only. So you can have a good meal. You can have a fruit with your breakfast. And ideal time to wait for digestion is 3 hours, I can suggest. Some people take slightly longer. Some people take slightly less. Average 2 hours. Sorry, 3 hours. Can you share drinking water in Ayurveda? It's discussed in the Drava Dravyadi chapter. Are there any coffee replacement drink recommendations? So we generally tell our patients they can drink a glass of milk, but if they're not used to it, they don't like it, you can just have a little bit of chukumalli, that is ginger and roasted dhania, make it a powder, take about half a teaspoon, boil it with some water, and then add a little bit of sugar if you want, or just have chukumalli, that is dry ginger and dhania, as a drink in the morning. So then again, there are a lot of repeated questions. I'm not going through that. So that's what payasam is very rarely. We do not have payasam with food every day. Occasionally for some festival, if you're having a milk-based payasam, occasionally is okay. Do not have milk-based sweet with food regularly. So, but on the days we eat idli, everyone in the families, that I don't know why they are hungry. But urad dal is guru to digest, and when you steam the food, it definitely takes longer to digest. So maybe they're not eating substantially more, or you can include something more in the diet if they're still hungry. So what we say is, when you eat your meal, eat well. Eat till you fill half your stomach, or make sure that your appetite is satisfied. So is coffee and milk same? No. The properties are different. And is it okay to have cow milk 3 times a day in adulthood? No, I think in adulthood, that is in old age, if you mean to say 3 times is not needed, then you cannot be having anything else. If you want to have milk, have 1 glass in the morning and then 1 glass of milk between lunch and dinner in the evening time. That should be enough. Then buttermilk, I think please go through the buttermilk chapter. In more Kolombo curry, which are hot up. So I have discussed this also. So again, properly churned buttermilk should be used for this ideally. Once in a while, if you're going to do a curd based thing, it is once in a while, it will not bother you. Is dahi vada okay? So again, occasionally you do is fine, but then again, don't add it when it is hot. But there is no contradiction between curd and urad dal, so dahi vada is okay. So I make idli. Then so idli dosa, I still recommend weekly, twice or maximum thrice, including all your 3 meals. So keeping the batter for 4 days, 5 days definitely ferments it and makes it more sour. So can we mix and eat fruits like guava? Yeah, you can mix different kind of fruits in a bowl. That is okay. Do not eat it with anything else. So is that citrus fruits are virudam with other types of fruits? No. Combination of fruits is okay. Is dandruff also in India? So almond has lot of different qualities. Let's not go into that. So if you have dandruff, we'll have to assess the root of it. So if you cannot have milk of fruits in the evening before dinner, no, you can definitely have fruits with dinner, or in the evening time you either have milk or fruit, not both together. It's a or, not and. Some people will have one apple, then after 10 minutes drink one coffee. That should not be done. So ideally give 3 hours gap before food. Then can we have coffee half an hour after breakfast? No. um, how is allergy coming from foods? Again, it's a different topic. We'll have to assess why the person is allergic and etc. So milk with beetroot, carrot powder, like so then again, if it is not, if you're so used to taking milk with something, we say just use a little bit of elaka or something like that, elaichi. But if this carrot beetroot powder does not have any salt or something like that, you can use once in a while, because it's very difficult these days to tell people not to. Is coffee or tea or milk in itself considered a meal? In the context when you mentioned 2 or 3, it is not considered a meal. It is just considered a drink in between, and coffee tea is very newly introduced. So ideally you can have a glass of milk, because we are because our appetite has so increased so far. Now you can consume it in the morning, one glass, because when we get up at 7 we are not going to have breakfast. So first thing, you can consume some milk, because you have been on empty stomach for so long. So what is psoriasis? It's a skin disease. So that is not relevant today. You can just Google up psoriasis. Sabudana good for health. So it's a product of tapioca. As such, the qualities are not mentioned, but definitely you can take it once in a while. How not to suppress hunger? How not to suppress hunger, not gaining weight at the same time? This is I do not know how to. So one thing, you do not suppress hunger. If you're hungry and starve your body, then you will end up getting an increase of vayu. At the same time, you have to correct what you're eating. So eat when you're hungry and eat maybe light food and change your diet accordingly. You can avoid all the weight gaining foods. So how not to suppress hunger after 8:30? So I don't know, if you have dinner at 8:30, do you still feel hungry at 8 o'clock? Are you still hungry at 8:30? I don't know. So ideally, if we go to bed by 10:30, which is the recommended time, we do not feel hungry. But if you're going to go to bed at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the night, then definitely the hunger sets in. So that is also not recommended. So yeah, I think most of what causes nose block every morning. One is if you're someone used to having curd, buttermilk, 2 meals, 3 meals a day, you will definitely wake up with a nose block. Or a mild amount of kapham while brushing when it comes out is normal, absolutely normal. That is okay. Nose block every day morning might be because of practices like this. So then again, it is not recommended. So I think most of the doubts are clarified, and we have also reached, yeah, it's 9:30. So if there's anything else that we have not covered, so kindly send in your queries into these two mail IDs. And yeah, we can we can see the remaining topics about food in the next class. So yeah, I think I've covered most of the queries. So I think we can finish today's session. And if there are any unanswered doubts, kindly send it to the mailbox. Please include Aushadha Varga. We will try, but yeah, you can consume almonds, cashews, peanuts along with breakfast. That's okay. So next class will predominantly again deal with food, some more concepts regarding food, and Ashtahara Vidhi. That is what the 8 protocols of food that are to be mentioned. So Aushadha Varga we did not include under this because it was a very basic concept. So we will definitely try. One second. Can I just unmute someone quickly? So kindly just ask one or two doubts. Who have raised their hands? Give me a minute. So yeah. Okay, I think I've unmuted someone. So
hello.
hello. Yes, sir.
Hear me? Okay.
Yes, I
I
can
have
hear
two
you.
questions. One is about the Oma water. Normally, people recommend Oma water for ajirnam and other things. What is your view?
You can. So omam is nothing but carom seeds. They have similar property to jeerakam and all. It is a good carbonative. So you can sip on omam water as well.
Okay. The second question is regarding you suggested saying that don't take coffee or tea, which is milk after breakfast or something. What about black tea or black coffee? Is the same effect, or we are not mentioned in Ayurveda?
So that concept is not mentioned, but now typically a lot of people want to drink something with breakfast. So you can have a black tea or something like that, or a green tea, or just some chukumali water would be recommended.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So next, I think, okay. Yeah. I've unmuted one more person. Hello. So I 1 second asked one. Once. Have I unmuted anyone? Can you? Yeah.
Thank you for answering all our questions. Dhanyavada.
Yeah. Tell me, ma'am. Welcome. So 1 second. Let me unmute the next person. Once. Anyone else? Malini asked.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, tell me, ma'am.
Nowadays, people are consuming pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, melon seeds.
Which one, ma'am? I can't hear you. People are consuming?
Melon seeds, sunflower.
I can't hear you. Melon seeds.
Sunflower, pumpkin,
Yeah.
sunflower, and melon seeds. So
Yeah.
seed consumption, okay.
So there is no typical reference about this in Ayurveda, and I do not know any known benefits of it. I mean, more practically, we have to go through why they recommend these seeds to be had. But otherwise, I think occasionally, if you're going to consume a little bit, is okay. But there is no scientific or Ayurvedic reference about consumption of seeds in the diet. Yeah. So I think I've unmuted one more person. We can quickly go through.
Ma'am?
Yeah, tell me, ma'am.
Yeah, my question is, our Indian habits, sir, after taking your breakfast, we used to take a coffee or tea, isn't it?
Yes.
But it's not advisable, is it?
It is not usually an Indian habit. Tea, coffee itself is very new. So that's what I told you. You're going to have your breakfast with something that is sour, salty. Your idli will have sambar, chutney, whatever. You'll have pickle, etc. Again, consuming milk with anything that is viruddham. See, occasionally if you have is okay. It is not recommended in a daily format.
Bagu samyak asti, Mohode.
Yeah. Welcome. Yeah. So I think there's just one last person. So we can quickly finish.
Thank you for today's class.
Hello, sir. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, is there a mention of green tea in Ayurveda? Because many people are suggesting green tea is very good for health or something like that. So just wanted to know. Or if it is mentioned, if it's not mentioned, is there any ingredients reference for green tea or something like that?
Not really. So all this herbal tea, green tea has come very recently into existence, and some modern researchers say it is good. Some modern researchers say it doesn't have any great benefit. So it in itself is very contraindicating, but Ayurveda doesn't back anything like that. So since that's what today people are so habituated, and suddenly if you ask them to stop everything, people are not very welcoming of it. occasionally we say you can have maybe a dip of it, or 2 dips of green tea and have it. I don't see any harm in it. Otherwise, Ayurveda always as a drink recommends ginger and dhania roasted and powdered and have like a decoction. But once in a while people do have herbal teas, but I think it's okay. It's not very problematic.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think we are done. Yeah, and we are running short of time. So anything unanswered, you can just send us a mail. So then again, all your herbal teas, you can definitely have once in a while. That is okay. So seeds in the diet so seeds, I don't know, protein food. There are a lot of other foods that have protein which are included in our staple diet. You can correlate whatever foods that we have asked. And yeah, I think so. Your question answer MCQ at the end of all the sessions will just be on all the classes that we have attended so far. They'll just be multiple choice. You just have to choose the correct option. There's nothing subjective. Yeah, I think we've answered most of them. So last 2 people, I think, then we can finish the session. We're really running late. So I've unmuted someone.
Okay. What my question is, you suggested drying, roasting ginger and then make a decoction. Do you drink the water by itself, or can you mix with milk? Or milk cannot be mixed. It should be drank as primarily sukku or malli water.
So predominantly you drink it only as chukumalli water. So don't make it a concentrated decoction. Make it more like a drink. So boil a lot of your water in it, filter it and have that, so that the essence of it is mixed in it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there's one last person. Ma'am, you can ask. Yeah, tell me, ma'am.
In the morning time, 3 o'clock, nose is blocked every day. Nidra is na agatam. Kim karaniyam.
So this is not related to this question. We have to do an individual thing, why that is. So no personal questions I can answer. You can definitely consult a physician or see what is the reason. We'll have to do a detailed case assessment or make these changes in your diet. Yeah. So I think we can stop today's session. If there are any doubts unanswered, please send in your mail. So we'll finish today's session. I thank you all for joining in, and let us meet for the next class. So thank you.